In the remote, fog-shrouded peaks of Hollow Ridge, where the wind howls like a tormented soul and the trees claw at the sky, lived two sisters bound by blood and secrets darker than the endless nights. Evelyn and Clara Hawthorne, twins in their mid-30s, had inherited the crumbling family cabin from their late parents, a place forgotten by time and civilization. The locals in the valley below whispered tales of the Hawthorne lineage, riddled with madness and isolation, but no one dared venture up the treacherous paths to confirm the rumors. The sisters rarely descended from their mountain perch, sustaining themselves on canned goods, hunted game, and the occasional supply run disguised as errands for family business, and their bond was unbreakable, forged in the fires of a childhood marred by abandonment and unspoken horrors that left scars deeper than the ravines surrounding their home. Evelyn, the elder by mere minutes, was the enforcer, tall, wiry, with eyes like polished obsidian that pierced through lies and weakness. Clara, softer in appearance but sharper in cunning, handled the manipulations, her voice a silken thread that could weave trust or terror. They shared everything, meals, chores, even dreams that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. But beneath their synchronized existence lurked a void, a hunger for control, for companionship twisted into something profane. Their parents' deaths 5 years prior had only amplified this emptiness, turning the cabin into a fortress of solitude. Whispers in the wind seemed to echo their desires, urging them toward acts that would defy humanity itself. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves bled red across the slopes, a letter arrived at the valley post office, forwarded up the mountain by a reluctant courier. It was from their estranged aunt in the city, pleading for help. Her son, their cousin Marcus, had fallen on hard times, lost his job, his wife, his grip on sanity after a string of misfortunes. At 28, he was adrift, vulnerable, and in need of a fresh start. The sisters exchanged knowing glances over the flickering lantern light. "Family takes care of family," Evelyn murmured, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Clara nodded, her mind already spinning webs. They replied with feigned warmth, inviting Marcus to stay indefinitely, promising the healing powers of mountain air and seclusion. Marcus arrived 2 weeks later, his battered truck rattling up the dirt road that snaked through the pines. He was a handsome man, broad-shouldered from years of manual labor, with a kind face etched by recent grief. The sisters greeted him with open arms, literally. Evelyn clasped his hand firmly, her grip lingering a second too long, while Clara enveloped him in a hug that pressed too close, her breath warm against his neck. "We've missed having family around," Clara cooed, leading him inside. The cabin's interior was a labyrinth of creaking floorboards, faded wallpaper peeling like old skin, and rooms cluttered with relics from generations past. Marcus noticed the musty scent, a mix of damp earth and something metallic he couldn't place, but chalked it up to the age of the place. Over dinner that first night, venison stew simmered. With herbs from the garden, conversations flowed like the nearby stream. Marcus opened up about his failures, the divorce that shattered his world, the debts piling like snowdrifts, the isolation that mirrored the mountains themselves. The sisters listened intently, their eyes gleaming in the firelight. Evelyn shared snippets of their own hardships, painting a picture of resilience born from tragedy. "Our parents taught us to hold on tight to what matters," she said, her voice low and intense. Clara nodded, refilling his glass with homemade wine that tasted faintly bitter. As the evening wore on, Marcus felt a haze settle over him, the room spinning gently. "Must be the altitude," he mumbled, excusing himself to the guest room upstairs. But in the dead of night, as owls hooted their mournful calls, the sisters crept from their shared bedroom. They had prepared for this moment meticulously, transforming the cellar beneath the cabin into a chamber of confinement. Accessed through a hidden trapdoor in the kitchen floor, it was a space their father had once used for storage, now reinforced with padlocks, chains bolted to the stone walls, and a single bare bulb swinging from the ceiling. The air down there was thick, stale, laced with the promise of perpetuity. Evelyn carried a syringe filled with a sedative, brewed from local plants, knowledge passed down from their mother, who had dabbled in herbal remedies with a darker edge. Clara held a rag soaked in chloroform just in case. Marcus awoke to darkness, his head throbbing, wrists and ankles bound by cold iron chains that rattled with every futile struggle. The cellar's damp walls pressed in, the low ceiling forcing him to hunch. Panic surged as memories flooded back, the wine, the dizziness, the sisters' faces blurring into one. "Help!" he screamed, his voice echoing off the stone. But the soundproofing they had installed, layers of old quilts and foam scavenged from, town swallowed it whole. Footsteps approached from above, the trapdoor creaking open like a coffin lid. Evelyn descended first, her silhouette backlit by the kitchen light, carrying a tray of food. Clara followed, locking the door behind them. "This is your new home, cousin," Evelyn stated matter-of-factly, setting the tray down just out of reach. Marcus's eyes widened in terror. "Why? What did I do?" Clara knelt beside him, stroking his cheek with a tenderness that chilled him more than the chains. "You've done nothing wrong, dear Marcus, but we need you. Family sticks together, remember, and you're going to be so much more than a cousin now." Her words hung in the air, laced with implication. They explained their plan in hushed tones, as if revealing a sacred ritual. He would be their husband, shared between them, fulfilling the roles their isolated lives had denied. Resistance would bring pain. Compliance, fleeting comforts. The first days blurred into a nightmare of deprivation and coercion. They fed him sparingly, bread, water, scraps from their meals to weaken his spirit. Evelyn enforced the rules with a cattle prod salvaged from an abandoned farm, its shock sending jolts through his body whenever he protested. Clara whispered promises and threats, her hands exploring his form. Under the guise of care, the cellar's isolation amplified every sound. The drip of water from cracks in the foundation, the sisters' laughter filtering down from above, Marcus's own sobs. He begged, reasoned, raged, but the mountains kept their secrets. And so did the hawthorns. As weeks turned to months, the sisters' practices escalated, transforming the cellar into a den of depravity. They visited at irregular hours, sometimes together, sometimes alone, enforcing their twisted marital rights. Evelyn's approach was brutal, driven by a rage rooted in their parents' neglect. Her father had favored Clara, leaving her starved for dominance. She would chain Marcus tighter, forcing acts that blurred pain and submission, her laughter echoing like thunder. Clara, haunted by dreams of a forbidden love from their youth, sought intimacy laced with delusion, treating him as a lover reborn. "You're ours now," she'd murmur, her nails digging into his skin, drawing blood that stained the dirt floor. Marcus's body bore the marks, bruises blooming like poisonous flowers, scars from the prod's burns, malnutrition hollowing his cheeks. Mentally, he fractured, hallucinating escapes through the unyielding walls. The sisters documented it all in a hidden journal, pages filled with clinical detachment and feverish excitement. Entries like, Day 47, husband resists but yields under pressure. Bond strengthening. They rationed light, plunging him into darkness for days to heighten his dependence. Food became a weapon. Rewards for compliance, starvation for defiance. The air grew foul with the scent of sweat, fear, and something more primal. Yet in rare moments of solitude, Marcus clung to fragments of hope. He scratched messages into the stone with a loose nail. Dates. Please his name, as if the walls could bear witness. Unbeknownst to him, the sisters' isolation was cracking too. Evelyn's paranoia grew, fearing outsiders might stumble upon their secret, while Clara's obsession deepened, blurring the line between affection and madness. The mountains watched indifferently, their peaks piercing the sky like accusatory fingers, as the horror in Hollow Ridge festered unchecked. Winter descended like a shroud, blanketing the mountains in snow that isolated the cabin further. Marcus's screams had dulled to whimpers, his will eroding under the relentless assault. The sisters celebrated their anniversary, 3 months since his arrival, with a ritualistic feast in the cellar, forcing him to partake in acts that defied description, their laughter mingling with his silent tears. Evelyn chained him in new configurations, experimenting with restraints that maximized control and minimized escape. Clara introduced elements from old folklore books, hidden in the attic, chants and symbols etched on the walls, invoking ancient spirits to bless their union. But cracks appeared in their facade. During one visit, Clara confessed in a whisper, "We do this because we're broken, Marcus. The mountains made us this way." Her vulnerability sparked a flicker in him, a plan to exploit their divisions. He began feigning submission, whispering compliments to Clara, sowing seeds of jealousy in Evelyn. The cellar's chill seeped into his bones, but so did resolve. Above, the sisters argued more frequently, their voices carrying faintly through the floorboards, disagreements, oversharing him over how far to push. As the snow piled higher, trapping them all in a frozen hell, Marcus plotted in the dark. He loosened a chain link during unguarded moments, testing its give. The horror was far from over, but the first threads of resistance wove through the nightmare. Little did he know, the sisters' depravity had only just begun to unravel, promising deeper terrors in the shadows of Hollow Ridge. Spring thawed the snows of Hollow Ridge, but the chill in the cellar lingered like a ghost. Marcus had endured 6 months of captivity, his body a map of scars and his mind a fractured mosaic. The sisters' visits had become ritualistic, Evelyn's sessions raw with violence, her fists and tools leaving welts that festered in the damp. Clara's were insidious, laced with feigned affection that twisted into demands, her whispers promising release if he loved them fully. They shared him like a possession, alternating nights, documenting his progress in their journal with entries that read like clinical, experiments gone mad. Husband adapts, Clara wrote one entry, but eyes betray rebellion. Marcus played the game of submission, murmuring endearments to Clara during her solitary visits, planting doubts about Evelyn's loyalty. She hurts me more than you, he'd say, his voice hoarse from disuse. Clara's responses grew hesitant, her touches lingering with uncertainty. Evelyn noticed the shift, her paranoia blooming like the wildflowers outside. Arguments erupted upstairs, shouts about jealousy, control, the risk of their secret unraveling. One night, after a particularly brutal session, Evelyn stormed down alone, cattle prod in hand. "You think you can turn her against me?" she snarled, jabbing him until he convulsed. The cellar evolved into a chamber of horrors, chains upgraded with locks from town, a makeshift bed of stained mattresses where they enacted their marital duties. They fed him drugged meals to keep him compliant, herbs that dulled his senses but sharpened his nightmares. Hallucinations plagued him, visions of his ex-wife laughing from the shadows, his aunt's face morphing into the sisters. Yet, in lucid moments, he worked the loose chain link, filing it against the stone wall until it weakened. Escape seemed a distant dream, but desperation fueled him. One fateful afternoon, as rain hammered the cabin roof like accusatory fists, Clara descended alone with a tray of food. Her eyes were red-rimmed from another fight. "Evelyn wants to end this," she confessed, unchaining one wrist to let him eat. "She says you're breaking us apart." Marcus seized the moment, his free hand grabbing her arm, pulling her close. "Help me, Clara, we can leave together, away from her." For a heartbeat, she wavered, her face softening, but loyalty won. She yanked away, screaming for Evelyn. The elder sister burst in, rage contorting her features. Together, they punished him savagely, Evelyn with the prod, Clara with a belt scavenged from their father's old tools. Blood trickled from fresh wounds, mixing with the dirt floor into a muddy paste. "No more games," Evelyn hissed, tightening the chains until they bit into his skin. They left him in darkness, the trapdoor slamming like a death knell. Hours later, sobs echoed from above, Clara's, muffled by Evelyn's harsh words. The divide deepened, but so did their commitment to the depravity. Marcus's hope flickered but didn't die. In the ensuing days, he overheard fragments of their plans, reinforcing the cellar, perhaps finding another family member to join. The thought chilled him more than the cold. He redoubled his efforts on the chain, the metal groaning softly. Outside, the mountains stirred with life, birds chirping, streams rushing, but down here only torment thrived, as summer's heat seeped through the cracks, turning the cellar into a sweltering tomb. The sisters' practices grew more unhinged. Evelyn introduced fire, branding irons heated over a portable stove, marking Marcus with symbols from their folklore books. "This binds you to us eternally," she intoned, the sizzle of flesh filling the air. Clara, torn between horror and obsession, participated reluctantly, her hands trembling. They forced him into acts that blurred boundaries, their laughter a cacophony of madness. Marcus's body weakened, infection setting in from untreated wounds, but his resolve hardened. During a rare unsupervised moment, Clara forgetting to lock a restraint fully, he snapped the weakened chain. Adrenaline surged as he tested his bonds, freeing one ankle. The trapdoor was bolted from above, but he plotted, wait for a visit, overpower one, escape. Whispers of doubt crept in. What if he failed? The mountains were vast, unforgiving. Upstairs, the fracture widened. Evelyn accused Clara of softness, leading to a violent clash that shook the cabin. Objects crashed. Screams pierced the floorboards. In the chaos, Marcus heard opportunity. The horror of Hollow Ridge was peaking, secrets straining to burst free. Autumn returned to Hollow Ridge, leaves falling like shed secrets, as Marcus's captivity stretched into its 9th month. His body was a ruin, emaciated, scarred, infections raging from untreated brands and lashes. The sisters' depravity had intensified. Evelyn's rage manifested in nightly torments, using improvised tools from the shed, pliers for nails, wires for bindings that cut deep. Clara increasingly unhinged, blurred love and torture, forcing intimacies that left him shattered. They rotated honeymoons, chaining him in poses from their twisted folklore, chanting incantations to seal the bond. The journal swelled with entries. Husband weakens but spirit clings, must break fully. Marcus's plan coalesced in the stifling dark. The loosened chain was his lifeline. He feigned total submission, luring Clara into complacency. During her visits, he'd whisper alliances, exploiting her jealousy. Evelyn grew suspicious. Installing a hidden camera scavenged from town, a grainy feed they watched upstairs, laughing at his despair. But Marcus spotted its blind spot, using it to his advantage. Whispers from above revealed their fracture. Evelyn plotting to dispose of him if he failed, Clara protesting in tearful rages. One stormy night, thunder masking sounds. Clara descended alone with sedative-laced soup. "Drink, my love," she cooed, unchaining his hands. Marcus complied partially, then struck, lunging with the free chain, wrapping it around her neck. She gasped, clawing, but his desperation fueled strength. "This ends now," he growled, tightening until she slumped unconscious. Heart pounding, he rifled her pockets for keys, unlocking the remaining bonds. The trapdoor loomed above, unbolted in her haste. Creeping upstairs, Marcus emerged into the kitchen. The cabin's warmth a stark contrast to his hell. Rain lashed the windows like accusations. Evelyn was in the living room, back turned, poring over the journal by firelight. He grabbed a poker from the hearth, its iron cold in his grip. Stealthy steps creaked the floorboards. She whipped around, eyes widening. "You!" she snarled, lunging with a knife from her belt. They clashed, poker clanging against blade, body slamming into furniture. Evelyn fought like a demon, slashing his arm, blood spraying. "You'll never leave!" she screamed, her strength born of madness. Marcus swung wildly, connecting with her temple. She crumpled, dazed. He bound her with ropes from the pantry, gagging her with a rag. Adrenaline surged as he searched for a phone. No landline, cells hidden. Clara stirred below, muffled moans rising. Panic set in. The mountains were miles from help, his body frail. Dragging Evelyn to the cellar, he chained her beside Clara, roles reversed. "Feel what I felt," he whispered, locking the trapdoor. But vengeance twisted him. Flashes of their abuses replayed, urging darker acts. He resisted, fleeing into the night, barefoot through mud and thorns. Sirens wailed in his mind, hallucinations or hope. Miles down the trail, collapsing at a ranger station, Marcus gasped his tale to disbelieving officers. Police swarmed the cabin, finding the sisters bound, raving about family rights. Evidence poured out. The journal, tools, his scars, the horror of Hollow Ridge unveiled, shocking the valley. But as Marcus recovered in hospital, nightmares lingered, the sisters' eyes, promising retribution from behind bars. The case exploded in media. Mountain madwomen's captive kin. Yet, loose ends haunted, whispers of similar family legends, suggesting the Hawthorne's depravity ran generations deep. Marcus wondered if the mountains held more secrets waiting to claim another. The trial of the Hawthorne sisters gripped the nation. Headlines screaming mountain monsters' cousins. Cellar nightmare. In the sterile courtroom of the valley town, Marcus testified from a wheelchair, his body still mending from the ordeal. Scars crisscrossed his skin like a roadmap of hell, his voice trembling as he recounted the captivity, the chains, the abuses, the twisted marriage rites. Evelyn stared daggers from the defense table, her obsidian eyes unrepentant, while Clara wept theatrical tears, claiming coercion by her twin. Prosecutors unveiled the journal, its pages a chronicle of depravity, dates, descriptions, even sketches of their rituals inspired by family lore. As evidence mounted, the sisters' backstory unraveled like frayed rope. Their parents, reclusive survivalists, had raised them in isolation, enforcing bizarre family bonds that blurred lines of propriety. Whispers from Old Valley residents surfaced, rumors of the Hawthorns' ancestors practicing dark rites in the 1800s, chaining kin in mountain caves to preserve the bloodline. Evelyn's defense painted her as a victim of generational trauma, but Marcus's scars told a different tale. Clara cracked under cross-examination, admitting their hunger for control stemmed from a forbidden childhood pact, sworn after their father's suspicious death, ruled accidental but laced with poison suspicions. The courtroom buzzed with horror as forensic experts detailed the cellar. DNA traces not just Marcus's, but faint remnants suggesting prior victims, perhaps transients, lured up the mountain years ago. No bodies found, but soil samples hinted at shallow graves in the woods. Evelyn smirked during testimony, muttering about family secrets buried deep. Marcus felt a chill. Even caged, their influence lingered, nightmares plaguing his sleep with visions of the sisters escaping. Outside the courthouse, media frenzy erupted, reporters dubbing them the incestuous isolates, drawing parallels to forgotten folklore. Marcus's aunt, racked with guilt for sending him, testified tearfully about ignored red flags, the sisters' eerie letters, their parents' accidental falls down ravines. Clara's breakdown on the stand sealed it. She confessed to brewing the sedatives, learned from their mother's herbal grimoires hidden in the attic. "We were made this way," she sobbed. "The mountains demand sacrifice." But twists emerged. A hidden camera feed recovered showed Evelyn whispering plans for after, alluding to accomplices in the valley, perhaps distant relatives upholding the dynasty. Investigations widened, unearthing old missing persons cases linked to Hollow Ridge. Marcus, paranoid, spotted shadows tailing him, wondering if the Hawthorns' web extended beyond the cabin. As deliberations loomed, a package arrived at Marcus's safe house, a lock of hair, chained with a note, "Family forever." Panic surged. The horror wasn't buried yet. The jury's verdict echoed through the courtroom like a death knell. Guilty on all counts: kidnapping, torture, sexual assault, attempted murder. Evelyn and Clara Hawthorne were sentenced to life without parole. The judge's voice grave as he condemned their monstrous perversion of family. Reporters swarmed. Marcus outside, flashing cameras capturing his hollow eyes and bandaged wounds. "Justice served," he muttered to the microphones, but inside emptiness gnawed. The sisters were hauled away in chains, the irony not lost on him. Evelyn spitting curses, Clara blowing a mocking kiss. The media circus peaked. Documentaries pitched. Books rushed. The Hollow Ridge hell trending worldwide. Yet for Marcus, the nightmare refused to end. Relocated to a witness protection program in a bustling city far from the mountains, Marcus attempted normalcy, therapy sessions, a desk job, nights haunted by cellar echoes. The package arrived on a rainy evening. No return address, inside a braided lock of hair, his own. Clipped during captivity. Wrapped in a chain link. With a note in Clara's looping script. "Blood calls to blood. See you soon, husband." Panic clawed him. He alerted authorities, who dismissed it as a prank from obsessed fans. But Marcus knew better. Digging into seized evidence, he uncovered suppressed files. The Hawthorns weren't alone. Their journal hinted at a circle, distant cousins in nearby valleys, upholding the preservation rights for generations. Driven by obsession, Marcus returned to Hollow Ridge undercover. The cabin now a cordoned-off crime scene. Sneaking past tape under cover of night, he pried open the trapdoor one last time. The cellar reeked of decay, walls still etched with his desperate scratches, but new markings gleamed fresh. Symbols from the folklore books, a fresh blood spelling "Welcome home." Heart racing, he fled upstairs only to hear whispers from the attic, familiar voices. Armed with a hidden recorder, Marcus confronted the truth in the attic's dust-choked gloom. Hidden behind false panels, more journals, older, yellowed pages detailing ancestors' victims, cousins, hikers, even a sibling long lost to the ravines. Photos showed the family tree twisted into incestuous knots, rites dating back to settlers who believed isolation bred purity through force. But the horror deepened, a pregnancy test positive. Tucked in Clara's handwriting, "Our legacy lives." During captivity, one of their forced encounters had taken root. Clara carrying his child, a heir to the madness, Rage boiled as he pocketed evidence, but footsteps creaked below. Spinning, he faced them, not ghosts. No, Evelyn. Escaped during a prison transfer accident, Clara smuggled out by loyal kin. They stood at the ladder top, disheveled but triumphant. Evelyn wielding the cattle prod, Clara cradling a swollen belly. The mountains always bring us back. The final confrontation erupted in the cabin's heart. Marcus fought desperately, grabbing a loose board, swinging at Evelyn's knees. She fell with a crack, prod sparking uselessly. Clara lunged protectively, knife flashing, but Marcus disarmed her, pinning her down. "It's over," he gasped, binding them with remnant chains. Sirens wailed distantly. He'd triggered a silent alarm earlier. As cops stormed in, the sisters raved about curses. Bloodlines, the child's destiny. In the aftermath, the full network unraveled. Arrests across the state. Shallow graves exhumed with remains of 5 prior victims, the Hawthorns' husbands over decades. Clara's child was born in prison, adopted anonymously to break the cycle, or so officials claimed. Marcus testified again. The pregnancy a bombshell that sealed their fate. The cabin burned in an accidental blaze weeks later, flames licking the peaks like purifying fire. Years on, Marcus found fragile peace. But on foggy nights, he hears chains rattling in dreams. Whispers persist in Hollow Ridge lore. Sightings of shadowy figures. Missing hikers. The mountains keep their secrets. And bloodlines, it seems, are harder to bury than bodies. Was the cycle truly broken? Or does the next letter wait in some distant mailbox calling another to the cellar? The horror of the Mountain Sisters endures, a warning that some families devour their own, and isolation breeds monsters that never truly die.